Intel's naming is worse and I really don't like it. The Rabbit R1 AI thing, just a bunch of fake Android stuff, and AMD is down bad, and not in a good way. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Thursday, May 2nd, 2024. Almost said April there. And speaking of things that I'm going to continuously mispronounce and say the name wrong of, that is what Intel is coming out with for their next gen CPUs. We're expecting Arrow Lake to drop sometime later this year, and we're getting some details behind the scenes on what the new names are going to be on what would be the 15th gen chips, but they are not going to be called that. No, they are going to go along with the new Core Ultra naming that Intel has just decided to bullheadedly run into. So the high-end chip is supposed to be called the Core Ultra 9 285K, then you got the Core Ultra 7 265K, and the Core Ultra 5 245K. These are going to be really easy and roll off the tongue. And I was having this conversation with Kyler earlier this week about how, you know, when change happens, sometimes it takes a little bit of just thought and getting used to it in order for you to come to terms with the fact that things have changed. But Intel announced that they were going to change from Core I to Core Ultra a while ago. I've had over 6 months to sit with it, and I still hate it. I think that this is bad branding. I think they are throwing away over a decade worth of brand identity that was easy to understand, easy to pronounce, and just made a lot of sense. It honestly is the exact reason why AMD copied them. It's such a brilliant, like, what they had with Core I worked. It was sensible. I don't see that happening with Core Ultra. I've tried to get used to it. I've looked at it in so many different ways. They've been trying to make these weird naming schemes on mobile for the past half decade. The Core i7 270p. I still thought that was ridiculous. And now I'm looking at this being like, I'm gonna say it. The Core Ultra 9 285K, 285K, 285K. It's gonna get weird. I don't know what's going over at Intel with their branding. They just changed Xeon Scalable to Xeon 6. There's a lot of shakeups going on in the market. Their chips are falling apart, right? They got a lot of fires in the oven to put out. But I still maintain that even though I'm very frustrated with Core Ultra, the single worst branding change they have made is if you look at the 13900K, how's that read? Intel Core i9 13900K processor. Sensible. Makes complete logic. My brain, I feel like this is natural, solid branding. The next generation is called the Intel Core i9 Processor 14900KS. Why did they do that? Why did they move the name to the word processor in between and split it up? It's not i9 14900K, it's i9 Processor 14900K. What are you doing, Intel? What are you doing? Fix your chips and fix your names. And I'm sure you're wondering, why does Brett have 2 chairs here? Well, that's because I've got a name that I want to tell you about with today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Herman Miller. I was super excited when Herman Miller reached out to us because I've been a big fan of their chairs for years. And now they were kind enough to not send us just 1, but 2 of their top tier ergonomic chairs to use. All Herman Miller chairs come with a 12-year warranty, require no assembly, that's right, straight out of the box, and are available for payment options through Affirm. In the office here, we have both the M-Body and the Aeron, both in the graphite colorway. Let's start with the Aeron, which is the one I'm sitting in. This chair is ergonomic to the core and designed to fill all body types. Fun fact, Herman Miller has been perfecting the Aeron for almost 30 years, and it shows. The Aeron works to make sitting more comfortable by distributing weight through 3 main factors. 8Z Pellicle. This is Herman Miller's innovative elastomeric suspension material. This special weave allows for better circulation and pressure point relief across 8 points of contact in the seat and back of the chair. Their Posture Fit SL. This is an advancement on Herman Miller's previous design, outfitted with individual and adjustable pads that focus on stabilizing the sacrum and supporting the lumbar spine, resulting in a truly supportive sitting experience. And the Harmonic 2 Tilt. What good is a chair that doesn't recline? None. That's why Herman Miller engineered a mechanism that delivers a smooth and balanced way to recline, being able to stay in control of your movement throughout the entire recline. And if a traditional style chair with top of the line ergonomics is something you're after, then the Herman Miller Aeron is definitely the ultimate chair for you. But moving on to the N body, we definitely have a more modern design approach to an office chair, and I have to say, I love the look of this chair. The N body is the modern benchmark for pressure distribution, natural alignment, and healthy movement. Combining both active and passive ergonomics, the N body aims to encourage effortless sitting. Looking at the back of this chair, you might be thinking, who came up with this? Impressively, more than 30 physicians and PhDs contributed expert opinions during the development of this chair, resulting in the iconic dynamic matrix of support pixels along the seat and back of the chair that adapt automatically to your body's shape and micro movements. Additionally, a design feature I found interesting was the narrowing of the upper back region, allowing for better torso and arm movement, resulting in better airflow for the lungs too. And moving down from the back, the seat of the N body is constructed for 4 different layers of support, perfectly blending comfort and airflow. All in all, the N body is a result of decades of ergonomic chair design poured into one sleek and comfortable design. And if you're looking for a way to improve your work from home office, your gaming setup, or you just really want a nice chair, check out both the Aeron and N body from Herman Miller via the links in the description below. And my wife's getting the Aeron, and Michael, one of our employees here, is getting the N body. Huge thanks to Herman Miller for sponsoring this video and giving our company some chair upgrades. And Herman Miller wanted me to address why I'm not keeping the chairs for myself, and that's simply because we ordered the medium size, and I unfortunately am a little bit too big for each of these, and I wanted to make sure that my wife could have a really great chair and that Michael could have a really great chair, because they're both a little bit more sensitive to lower quality chairs. And so having a bottom and a back that can handle other things, I decided to gift it to my employees and my wife. So that's why I'm doing that. And I'm gifting myself this thing, and that is the new ASL Cute Pet GPU RTX 4060. It's a cooperation with Supremo Cat. And unlike the Colorfire GPUs that got announced that were supposed to be Meow related, that had cat branding, there was no cat on the graphics card. On the backplate, it's white and orange. It has nothing to do with cats. This one got cats on it. It's got little paw prints. The back plate is fantastic. And you might be wondering, where do I get this? Well, they went for sale over on AliExpress. They've only sold 3. Guess who got one of them? Me? You could have it, I guess, if you wanted. I got it for the company, but you know, if it goes missing, I'm not gonna notice. Speaking of little furry animals, let's go ahead and talk about the Rabbit R1. This is a little AI physical hardware thing that got lambasted in reviews. The Humane AI pin, another one that overheated, cost $700 plus $24 a month, was a little ridiculous. People were looking to the Rabbit R1 to be a little bit more sensible. It's designed by Teenage Engineering, has a great bright orange color scheme, and only cost $200. So people were expecting, this might seem a little reasonable. Turns out AI on hardware, you gotta wonder why it's not just an app, and it turns out that it is just an app. It's literally an Android app that is literally running on Android. The Rabbit R1 is just an Android device that is masquerading as if it is not. The Rabbit CEO came out and said, no, it's not. It's actually not that, despite the fact that Android Authority got the APK, was able to install it on an iPhone 6A, and also somebody who has their hands on the Rabbit R1 was able to install regular Android apps on to the Rabbit R1 because it runs Android 13. This is being found out that despite the CEO of Rabbit saying, no, hey, we might be based on ASOP, which is the Android open source project. It's not just an Android device. It's more than that. It has Rabbit OS, which it doesn't appear to. It appears to just be Android OS, with the CEO saying, hey, it's all service in the cloud, so it's slightly different. To which the journalist over at Android Authority followed up with some good questions to understand exactly how all of this works and how the Rabbit R1 is not just an Android device, and the Rabbit CEO did not respond to any of these follow-up questions because they probably would indict him in the fact that this is just an Android device, which was the biggest complaint. Why is this just not an app? And the Rabbit CEO talked about this a little while ago. He said that the reason they're doing a physical hardware device is that if a better app comes along, what's gonna stop your users from switching? Well, if it's just an app, literally nothing, so you don't have any guaranteed revenue. If it's hardware, well, the fact that it's hardware, you have a physical button that does it. People have a sunk cost into your ecosystem, despite the fact that this ecosystem already exists. While we're living on the dang beach, you're building up a sandcastle saying, hey, this is my land. I made this, when you're repurposing sand from everywhere else. It's kind of hilarious how much Rabbit is denying these claims, trying to make it seem like they are not just some random device you can get. And I find it hilarious because it feels like crypto bros all over again, where when you ask the practical questions, the what problems does this solve, and don't use future promises. Don't tell me about the things that it's gonna do. Let's talk about what it can do right now. They don't have valid responses. They talk about, hey, if you didn't get started at one point, you would never be where you are right now. That's fair. I'm not asking people to pay $200 for something that doesn't exist right now. And hopefully Reece talks for a minute amount of time, because I went too long with that Rabbit rant. My bad.
Hey everyone, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet. Hope you guys are doing well, and hey, we've got some deals for you today. Starting off with this Logitech G502 Hero wired gaming mouse for only $34.99, making it $45 off. But then next up we have this Samsung 990 EVO NVMe M.2 SSD, specifically the 1TB version, for only $79.99, making it $70 off. And then lastly we have the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X desktop processor for only $175. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, I got the greatest deal of all for you, okay? I want a supercomputer. I want it, and the deal is for me. And exactly that is now up for sale, because the University of Wyoming in Cheyenne is actually having their supercomputer on sale. Currently, the bid's at $51,000. The reserve is not met, but you can buy it at 5.34 petaflops of performance. That's 4,000 dual socket nodes with a total of 145,000 cores. It's got 313,000 gigabytes of RAM, and it's just, it weighs a lot. It's a big old device. Somebody tweeted at Linus and said, hey, you want to buy this? And he said because it's in Wyoming, he's not going to pick it up. But this seems very reasonable. If you got deep pockets and thick wallets, maybe consider picking up this supercomputer for playing League of Legends. Might be a great idea. There's got to be a YouTuber who's considering this, right? Somebody who wants to have the fastest computer ever. Like, I could see some Minecraft YouTuber buying this and being like, I played Minecraft on a supercomputer and it lives in my house. I had to build an entire nuclear fallout shelter to house this thing. And Tesla is not going to house as many employees as it did previously, because Elon Musk has come out and said that they're going to be doing more layoffs, that he's going to be absolutely hardcore about these layoffs, getting rid of people left, right, and center. Included in that is entire teams, specifically of the new vehicle team and the supercharger team, which I am honestly shocked by, because the supercharger network was the one major competitive advantage that I believe Tesla had. Get rid of, all of the cult of personality that Tesla and Elon have. Get rid of the hype of full self-driving. Get rid of the minimalist iPad interior. The thing about the electric vehicle ecosystem that Tesla developed was the fact that you could drive coast to coast very easily and seamlessly, and had all of the chargers around. It's not perfect in every area, but they had thousands and thousands and thousands of chargers that made it so when you went on a long road trip, you could trust that you were going to have a charger somewhere. They spent over a decade developing this, and it honestly it's incredible. It's one of the reasons why the Cannonball in the F-150 Lightning was so much harder, was because the charging infrastructure was worse. Now I can use Tesla, but they laid off the head of the team as well as the entire team. Now Elon has come out and said that this doesn't mean they're not going to be installing more superchargers, but it feels very weird that you're getting rid of the competitive advantage that you had, especially after all of these companies, Ford, Rivian, all of them have said that they're going to start using the NACS Tesla charging standard. They already won in that regard. They're going to be making money off of all of these companies using their chargers. The sunk cost of building up the infrastructure is still there. Regardless, like, maybe, yes, you need to do layoffs. I understand the company do bad, get rid of people. I'm not necessarily knocking layoffs. I'm knocking getting rid of the entire team of something that set you apart in the economy to begin with. I find it baffling and confusing, and I honestly have no legitimate understanding of why this has happened, and chickens are going to come home to roost. This, for all of the things Tesla has ever done wrong, their supercharging network was it was the golden goose. at least in my opinion. AMD is celebrating their Golden Goose anniversary. I don't know if that's what the 55th birthday is called, but they're celebrating it, and this is coming the day after they had their earnings report for Q1 of this year. And in that, we got Dr. Lisa Su telling us that Zen 5 Ryzen and EPYC CPUs are going to be launching this year. We kind of already really knew that from a lot of the BIOS updates that were happening, but what we didn't know was happening was the absolute just train wreck that is their graphics card sales. Really bad, despite the fact that AMD's doing great. Really strong earnings, I guess you can imagine why, but that's with their gaming revenue declining 48%. To which I hear you saying, Brett, but they sell a lot of consoles. Well, AMD did address that. Despite the fact that they are having a killer year in all other regards, it turns out that their gaming sector is pretty bad. So they said that they're now in the 5th year of console sales, and it's in decline with their projections. That one's totally normal. You're not supposed to really see much of an uptick as the PS5 and the series consoles have been out for a little while. But in gaming graphics, speaking specifically about the graphics cards, revenue declined year over year and sequentially, and despite the fact that they launched their 7900 GRE and their AMD Fluid Motion frames, they are down significantly. This is because the RX 7000 series of cards is not selling well. It's just, unfortunately, despite the fact that the 7900 XTX is a price to performance banger, and the 7800 XT makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, and the 7600 is a great price to performance card, people are still buying Nvidia. And with this, AMD said that they're not expecting this demand to tick back up until 2025. They're not going to have any sort of recovery later this year, which could mean that they're not launching RX 8000 this year, or potentially they're going to launch it so late into Q4 that it's not going to have a meaningful improvement on their actual sales numbers. And this could also mean, because they did discuss this with the console side of things, that the PS5 Pro is not actually going to launch this year, or again, it could be so deep into the timeline of this year that it just ends up being a moot point. However, I could also argue that it's just going to be a non-mover in terms of sales. Will people pick up the PS5 Pro? I probably will, but will the mainstream person who hasn't even picked up a PS5 yet? Not very likely. So in terms of gigantic revenue increases, a Pro mid-series refresh is not going to do that. But AMD's not looking at their gaming graphics cards to pick up until sometime later next year, which means that they probably are not expecting RX 8000 to be that much different in terms of sales than what they currently have on the market, which is unfortunately a pretty big bummer. I'm honestly, despite the fact that I try to make sure that I am fair at dunking on all teams, Intel, AMD, and Nvidia when they do wrong and praising them when they do right, I think the RX 7000 series has been so sensible. I don't agree with the fact that it's struggling so much in sales. I think AMD probably has more work to do in terms of brand identity and mind share when it comes to people picking up their graphics cards. I think that this is a shame. I think it's a shame that Nvidia's winning so bigly. And a lot of people thought it was a shame that there was no episode of Hot News yesterday. Partly that happened because I couldn't find a great lead story for Hot News yesterday, and we also had this fully sponsored video on the Height Thick Q60 ready to go, so we just forewent Hot News yesterday, released an extra video. It happened to be sponsored, which I saw a few people say, hey, what's the difference between a sponsored video and an ad? Because this just felt like an ad. When I say a video is sponsored, you have to presume it's an ad. Like that's with like the Herman Miller segment earlier. Like, we're not going to say anything that we don't agree with when it comes to these ads, but at the same time, I am being a mouthpiece for the company in that video. So let's check out the comments. Daryl saying, glad to see Cyberkyler is now a permanent employee. Super Mactendo said, wait, where's my breakfast? Good review at least. But I'm glad you enjoyed the video. Then J.A. Blue said, blink twice if you need help, Kyler. Kyler, you need help?
Blink, blink!
He blinked. And then on Tuesday's episode of Hot News, Anon said, nice going, Brett. That mesothelioma line gave me enough nostalgia to lightly blow air out of my nose. Now I've got that JG Wentworth 877 cash now jingle stuck in my head. And I blame you. That's fair. You should call JG Wentworth if you have a structured settlement and you need cash now. See, that's an advertisement, but I did not get paid for that one. Gonomy Leggy saying, for the heat question, the average human gives out around 80 watts of energy. Imagine having another person in your room just hanging out and sharing heat. Would you notice? It depends on how close they were to me. If Kyler was right on top of me right now, I'd probably notice the warmth. That was weird. That got weird. I'm sorry. And then 80s Gamer said, what's up with the Band-Aid on the arm? I had to do a blood draw for some research for my son. They needed my blood in order to have me as a control against his blood to make sure that when they're doing genetic testing on SYNGAP and trying to understand how the disease works, they have me for that. So that's why I had a Band-Aid on Tuesday. Somebody took large vials of my blood, and it did not bother me in the slightest. I'm sorry if it bothers you, if me even talking about it bothers you, but that's my life, and I'm sticking to it, and I'll stick to hot news tomorrow, maybe. Probably. I don't think I'm gonna skip tomorrow again.